The AWS technical capabilities are better than the competition. That's why we are also using AWS for these core BSV blockchain capabilities.
Let's start, Thomas, by talking about the Python SDK. What is that and why is that exciting for the ecosystem?
We recently announced the launch in public beta of the Python SDK. The Python SDK is basically a set of tools for developers who are familiar with the Python programming language to use BSV without changing their tools and their preferred programming language. It matters because a lot of AI developers use Python as their preferred programming language. So if we want to be competitive in terms of all the AI use cases leveraging the blockchain capabilities, then we need to adapt all the BSV capabilities in the Python programming language.
Brilliant. So you're making things easier for developers.
Exactly.
We like that. We like that. Talk to me about another announcement that you made recently about overlay services.
Yeah. So overlay services is one of the main components of the Mandala upgrade that we announced recently in London during the DevCon. So the Mandala upgrade is basically the new network topology, including Teranode as the center, overlay services, and SPV wallets. So SPV wallets are already live. Teranode will be live in Q4 and Q1 next year. And now we announce the overlay services launch. Basically, overlay services will allow application builders to interact with Teranode. To keep it really simple, what is important also with overlay services is that it will allow businesses to set up their own business environments, leveraging permissionless network. Basically, what we like to mention is that we'll add some permission capabilities on top of a permissionless blockchain. CBDC, for instance, where the Swiss central bank would like to have their own dedicated environments for the digital version of their Swiss francs, they will use their own overlay services to create dedicated environment for all Swiss CBDC transactions, leveraging the permissionless capabilities of blockchain, allowing to have more interoperability between different application builders.
Now, this is great, Thomas. And I mentioned earlier that we are at the AWS Summit. And in Siggy's presentation today, he was talking about overlay services sitting in between Teranode and SDK. Tell me about how Amazon or how AWS fits in here in the marketplace and what that has to do with overlay services.
What Siggy mentioned earlier was the test of Teranode with 6 nodes at 1 million transactions per second using AWS services. So obviously Teranode is relying on the AWS infrastructure to run the different nodes for miner. What we do on our side is that for overlay services and SP wallet, it's one-click deployable on AWS, and it's aligned with all the requirements called the FTR requirements coming from AWS to be distributed within the AWS marketplace. So the different application builders that want to leverage the BSV blockchain, they will take our open source components, overlay services and SP wallet, and then in one click they can deploy it on AWS services. It will be easier to deploy, cheaper.
Brilliant, Thomas. Love this partnership with AWS. Really love being here at the summit, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.